Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy MKS here, back with another video. I didn't get to finish this last night, so I'm hoping to cover the videos I made last week about Roma as well. Yes, Roma, all being well. Hope to cover parts 2, 3, and 4 of that as well. And which is another cause I hope to fundraise for. Saying speech marks, I'm using the term probably quite loosely, or I don't even know if I'm using the term correctly. But anyway, I'm not sure if you could call a football team a cause, for instance. Anywho, I hope you enjoyed this video, and these are ideas or thoughts, number 31 to 40. And as ever, I'd love to know what you think and what you think. For instance, what are the most worthy causes? What religions give most to charity? What charities do you think are most, worthy of supporting? Which charities answer a call causes? What sort of things, if any, do you sort of fundraise for or donate to even, and that kind of thing. And here goes. So number 31, I dream that in the future I will be able to have supported, or I hope to continue to support, I hope to start supporting and continue to support and be more organised in my support. So basically get it started and then continue to do so. I mean, I already support a school in Kenya called the Rare Gem School, which is part of the Dyslexia Organisation of Kenya, DOK. So I hope people will, on that note, fundraise for Answer or just generally donate to and support that school and the Dyslexia Organisation of Kenya. But I hope to support as many orphanages and schools as possible across Africa, Asia, and developing nations, former colonies, and that kind of thing. Even Ireland, because it was colonised, and for Indigenous Australasians and other groups, what I call the six, but also orphanages all around the world. Excuse me, even in developed nations, if you like. But yeah, so that sort of thing, orphanages and schools and supporting young people, disadvantaged people, and that kind of thing, as I was talking about in parts 1, 2, and 3. Number 32, I dream to also support neurodiverse people, i.e. people with dyslexia, ADHD, and things like that, for people who haven't seen my previous videos. If there's any new people who watch these videos, hopefully, which I hope there will be. If you're new, please do subscribe as well on that note. But on that note, one of the reasons why I made this channel is, as well as trying to empower myself and express myself and connect with other people and things like that, and become more independent and that kind of thing, especially financially. I also decided to make this channel because I want to help others. So if you support this channel, you'll be supporting me, and also, which could be your good act for the charity. I was going to say your good deed for the day, but I hope you'll do it as often as possible. Like support my channel, watch my videos, and things like that. Sorry for the plug. But you'll also be helping me to help others, because if I do make any money from these videos, hopefully I'll donate as much of that as possible towards good causes, which I've talked about in these videos. And as I say, neurodiverse people, especially in developing nations, and I hope to encourage my fellow neurodivergent people, i.e. as I say, people with dyslexia, ADHD, and related conditions, to mentor for and teach and train and set up their own training academies and things like that in developing nations. So people with dyslexia who have done well, especially, and those with skills either in like STEM or business or whatever other areas, to help, I'd say, to mentor, teach, train, coach, encourage, and set up academies in developing nations. So Richard Branson, who's dyslexic, who founded Virgin Enterprises, again, sorry for those who have, well, I didn't apologize last time, but sorry for those who have watched my previous videos. As I repeat for potential new viewers or whatnot, but people like Richard Branson, John Chambers, Craig McCaw, Charles Schwab, and people like that. Richard Branson, who founded Virgin Enterprises, I think it'd be cool if he said that the idea of Virgin apparently was that it was like virgins at business. So it'd be cool if he supported first-time business people in developing nations and helped young people to learn about business and hopefully be empowered for the future, and hopefully they can be empowered themselves and then empower their countries and even continents as well, like in Africa and Asia and places like that, as I say. Although I am wary not just as not to see Africa as like a basket case or whatever that needs our help. I hope they'll be empowered in the future. So they won't really need my help. But as an anti-imperialist, I think it's, if I'm honest, I think it's the right thing to do to support them because they were colonised. Anyway, moving on, I think I covered that point in enough detail. Number 33, libertarianism. I'd love to fundraise for libertarianism, the quest for freedom, libertarianism, freedom, as much freedom as possible for as many people as possible. I'd love for people to be able to have as much freedom as possible to make their own choices. To be honest, a bit controversial. It's quite a right-wing ideology in many ways, which may seem to contradict, or maybe does contradict, my quest to support developing nations and that kind of thing. But I hope to do so in a libertarian way, i.e. without forcing anyone to do anything they don't want to do, which is not something I like to do. So as I say, I think people should have as much freedoms as possible, and I'd love for people to read up about libertarianism. And I'd love for people on that note to discuss what freedom means to you and what freedoms, excuse me, you think people should have. What time to have voice problems. Not that my voice is that great anyway, to be honest. But anyway, moving on, number 34, anti-war projects. I'd love to work with pacifists, conscientious objectors, and whatnot to, amongst other things, for instance, give people the rights to refuse to join the military, like to possibly end forced conscription all over the world, including in Israel, North Korea, even places like China if it exists, or South Korea, or wherever else forced conscription may exist. So I think all military should be voluntary based, as in the sense, obviously military personnel get paid, but in the sense that they're not forcefully conscripted, in better English. But that's one of the things I wish to do. And I've talked before about how it's not necessarily just fundraising financially, it's sometimes also working for like political rights in these cases. So as I say, if we end forced conscription all over the world, then it means that people who don't want to join the military wouldn't have to be forced to do so, obviously. But so that's it might not be a financial thing that we have to support. It might be like lobbying to, although money does talk, I believe politically, if I'm honest, the skeptic in me tells me, whatever politicians say about not being money-minded and all that kind of thing, I don't really trust them. They'd have to prove me wrong. But it's not just monetary-wise. It's also like moral support, giving our time, and finding ways to just generally support them. I don't know if I got a cold or whatever, or even a flu coming up again. I seem to keep getting them. Excuse me. Number 35, I talked about my 5 causes in part 1, so I hope to continue to work on those. Again, as I mentioned in part 1, if I could, I would donate or dedicate, rather, 20%, donate and stroke or dedicate, I suppose, especially dedicate 20% or a fifth, whichever way you want to look at it, of, obviously that's the same thing, but of all my attention, time, money, effort, energy, and whatever I have towards those 5 causes, which I mentioned in part 1. I won't go into detail here because I've already covered them, and this video has gone on longer than planned. So anyway, moving on, number 36. I'd love it to be part of my legacy. As I often say, I hope this doesn't sound narcissistic, but I'd love it to be part of my legacy that I would have been one of the top people working in a team with others to have helped to transform Italian football at club and country level to be world class. Number 37, the same for Celtic, obviously. Well, with Celtic, it's not club and country, but I would hope to help Celtic to become world class, or as close to world class as possible. And I hope on that note that the board of Celtic spends more money. I'd also love to help things like the Celtic Foundation and Italian teams to have their own foundations, do a lot of charity. Maybe they could have a deal with Italian teams and Celtic, maybe could have a deal with FIFA and UEFA to be able to legally bypass financial fair play, providing that they donate a lot of money to charity and things like that, 10% or whatever of the revenue or profits or whatnot. Profits or even revenue, I suppose revenue obviously would be higher. Number 38, I'll say neurodivergent people, I would love to see what we could contribute to the world, including how we could help to tackle poverty, how we can help developing nations and things like that. Number 39, animal rights is another thing that I'm passionate about. I'd love to fundraise for animal rights and encourage people to support animal rights. Like, I'd love to have organizations, like help to set up organizations like Animal Rights Africa, Animal Rights Asia, and that kind of thing. So people in those continents and countries respectively encourage each other to look after animals and maybe try and, I don't know about legislation, but at least encourage each other to be more ethical towards animals. Maybe I know it contradicted my point about freedoms and not forcing anyone, but in terms of, like, obviously we have rules that you can't just attack people. I think that should be the same with animals. I'm against animal cruelty, things like dog fighting or hurting dogs, cats, or any other animals. As I often rather cheesily say, I dream to make the world happier for all living things, or to make the world better for all living things, and make all living things as happy as possible. Even though I do get angry sometimes, overall I wish for all living things to be as happy as possible, and I hope to contribute to that, and I'd love to encourage other people to do so. So I hope people from Africa and Asia watch these videos and are encouraged to promote animal rights. Like, for instance, the school I mentioned that I support earlier, and even the organisation Rare Gem, or the Dyslexia organisation in Kenya, and Rare Gem, I suppose. I would love to encourage them to work on animal rights, and Animal Rights Africa and Animal Rights Asia could be organisations which also look at education and things like that, and training on how to make the world a better place for animals, including in those countries, and that kind of thing. So maybe even they could even teach young people how to be more kind to animals. So that goes to sympathy and empathy and compassion. So young people could be taught from a young age to look after animals, and I hope that sticks with them when they grow older as well. And number 40, again, if you have any causes or charities that you think are worthy of supporting, then I'd love to read about them. And it'd be interesting, as I mentioned in part 3, if there was like a list of the top religions that have made a positive contribution to the world, and hopefully that would encourage religious people to showcase what they can do to make the world a better place, on behalf of their religion. So it will make their religion look better. I suppose it's like PR for religion. And also what charities make the most positive difference to people's lives, how much of an impact it actually makes to their life, and things like that. Like with the Giving Pledge, one of the things I was thinking they could do, obviously the Giving Pledge is where they give wealthy people, some of the richest people in the world, people like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and people like that. Many of them, whoever signed that pledge, donates their money to charity, or have left money in their will for charity. But I think that would be greatly directed towards things like STEM training for women in developing nations, or supporting African nations in tech, for instance, and STEM generally, supporting African and Asian nations in STEM, and supporting people from orphanages and schools and training. I'll say education in STEM could be specific, where you know it's going to make a real, genuine difference, hopefully in the future. I would hope so anyway. So as I mentioned before, I am quite skeptical about charities and whether they actually do make a genuine difference. So another question I'd love to ask the audience, if you could be kind enough to post that in the comments, is how can we guarantee that, or I don't know if guarantee is the right word, how can we try to do our best to ensure, shall we say, that the money that we give to charity, even the time and the energy and effort and all that kind of stuff, actually reaches those most in need, and also does make a genuine difference. Anyway, I hope my voice was clear enough, and I am out.